When I was in secondary school, there was this girl I really fancied. She was in the same little friend group I was in, and later during the school year, I told one of my homegirls that I liked her. And to my surprise, I was told she liked me too. I was really excited to hear this. However, that excitement was followed by a deep sense of anxiety. And instead of thinking of ways to pursue her, I thought of ways to ensure that she'd keep those feelings for me, not screwing up and playing it safe, hoping that she'd make the first move. My homegirl would do everything in her power to try and bring us together, like setting up lobs, but I never had the heart to shoot. So eventually, I found out I lost possession. In other words, playing it passive in the long run caused her to become disinterested, as I was told she had a crush on another guy in our class. And on that day, I crashed out and dropped my first ever nuke in Black Ops 2. I was running the KSG, long barrel, I forgot what it is. The scope, the first scope that you get, I forgot what it's called. Anyways, I was filled with true sorrow and malice. However, I could only blame myself. This was my introduction of the concept of taking initiative, and although I was introduced to it, I never really understood how to initiate. My later school years were filled with hesitation, backtracking, and backseating, as I always let external forces control my decisions. Man enough but not proud to admit, all my secondary school relationships have been with people I had no prior interest in, and I pray to God none of them are watching this. This would be due to them asking me out and me not having the guts to say no, or me just being a teenage hornball, and even then, I wasn't intentional with that either. Looking back, I remember one of my exes had asked me, if we were in the school alone together, what would we do? And my dumbass said, look for some food and water to help us survive.
What?
Brother, that is an unreal and very questionable play. And it's moments like these that keep me up at night. However, all this backseating stopped randomly during my college years, when I finally built the guts to shoot my shot at another girl I was interested in. However, this time, I knew the chances of me scoring were close to none, vastly contrasting the prior circumstances, and to no one's surprise, I shot my shot and missed. She told me she wasn't interested and she didn't want to waste my time. Well, what changed? Where did this initiative come from? Honestly, I had to step back from writing the script and reflect a little. I wasn't close friends with this girl. We were acquaintances and we would often work together. But looking back, I would say it was mainly because at that moment I didn't care about missing. I really did like her. I would remember little things about her and try to talk to her about them. But rereading our conversation from 6 years ago, she really did not give me anything to work with. But that's okay, because after I confessed, I felt a massive relief. I felt like I could proceed with my life without looking back and thinking, what if? It felt somewhat similar to picking a fight with someone you know you can't beat and surviving. I was proud of myself because, for once in my life, I felt like I was in control of my own actions. That sense of initiative felt like a rush to me because immediately after that, I cut my hair short, something I was scared to do my whole life, and something I regretted doing in the moment. However, that moment was symbolic to me, representing renewal, and from there, I grew some luscious locks. As my confidence grew, I became more intentional, which led to significant progress in my life. Instead of waiting until I felt ready, I started acting anyways, as I got my first job and started my driving lessons at a young age. And using that newfound courage, I started shooting my shot, so much so, it felt like I had aim assist, which eventually led to my next relationship, surprisingly during my baby lock ugly phase. Unfortunately, in university, I lost all my attributes, my stats got reset in a new game plus, and I returned to the mentality I started with in secondary school. Potentially due to the breakup that happened prior, I became very critical of my self-image and my actions, prioritizing how I looked and acted. I was thrown into a new and unfamiliar environment by myself with no support system, so I felt like a monkey in the ocean. But you get the point. I felt so vulnerable externally, which made me retreat into somewhere that was more familiar to me, which was my own mind. In other words, I became unconfident. The constant self-criticism made me stagnant, and I'd often skip classes if I didn't feel adequate to go, and hesitate to make new friends or fear of being judged. I spent majority of my first year by myself with nothing special going on. It felt like my life had stopped moving, which is the exact danger of not being intentional. Now, I would say this video is important to those who are currently in this position, because having initiative at this time of your life is like being a weapon. And I know it's easy to say, you need to take initiative, but I promise you, you would benefit greatly from it, and you will give yourself the best chances of enjoying university, and you'll get more from the experience. Looking back, I realized I kept saying initiative without ever explaining what it meant. Well, according to Cambridge University, having initiative means using your own judgment to make decisions without waiting for instructions. I'm not an expert at being outgoing or confident all the time. Sometimes I still hesitate or feel introverted. This mindset isn't something I can switch on and keep on. And you might feel the same way. Still, the points I'll share come from what I've seen in people who do show initiative, as well as things that have helped me during the tough times. Looking back on the past 6 years, I believe that this is one of the most important skills you can develop as you become an adult, because nobody starts making the decisions for you anymore. You do. Taking the first step on your own can help you build your career and relationships. It also helps you make decisions that shape the life that you want. University is a great place to practice taking initiative, since you're away from home and you have more freedom from the malevolent dictatorship your parents run in your household. Now, I want you to understand that you most likely underestimate yourself. Most of us underestimate ourselves more often than we realize, and I still do most of the time. We look at situations we think that are too big for us, and sometimes, even when I find myself with the best hand I've ever dealt, I still hesitate to deal. But that's okay, because you need to understand that you won't die. If we were talking about an ordinary situation, then you won't die. Hopefully we are. It won't kill you to go up and say hi to someone, or to compliment a stranger, because your life is not on the line. I made one of my closest friends from a simple compliment. Due to my poor performance in college, skipping classes, talking when I wasn't supposed to, and troublemaking, I had to do a foundation year in uni, and I didn't get the grade required to start my first year. I had to perform an extra year in uni, and in my first year, I was able to sympathize with the new first years who were also in my prior position. And in doing so, I was able to be a support system and a guide for those who needed it. I couldn't do that without throwing myself out there and starting conversations. Even something as simple as, "Oh, I like your aesthetic," can go a long way for people. And I know because I was spamming that during my first semester. Make sure you be original though, don't steal my method. But compliments go a long way, and if it makes it easier for you, think about how you would feel receiving those compliments. I'm not saying it's a 100% success rate, but you'll be surprised how often it works. You're not too different from everyone else, and I believe that most people want to feel seen and appreciated. The effort put into how people present themselves is an example of that. You need to be the one that sees them. I remember walking to university on the first day, and it looked like a runaway fashion show. In college, I had a homeboy who would often do this. He did that with me the first time we met, and I watched him do it with everyone else, and I admired him for it. He taught me how to be social, and looking back, he may have influenced me to take those prior initiatives. He was the golden boy of our class, and everyone loved him because of it. He made sure people felt seen in a place where you can become easily invisible. So if you do want to practice this, go up to someone randomly tomorrow and just compliment them on the first thing that catches your eye. You don't need to expect anything in return. Just desensitize yourself to the fear of initiating. Now, let's say hypothetically, you took the initiative and you get dismissed or rejected, which will happen eventually on this path. You need to remind yourself of 3 things. It's not truly a loss unless you haven't learned anything. It is important to reflect on your approaches to see what you could do better and integrate those insights into your next opportunity. Sometimes it's just a matter of circumstance where you haven't done anything wrong, and that's where it's important to don't be too hard on yourself when you do fail. It's not the end of the world, and your intentions aren't bad, I hope. It's easy to withdraw after you fail because it protects your ego in the short term, but it also stops you from growing. People aren't as focused on our mistakes as we think. This is known as the spotlight effect, where we overestimate how much people notice and remember our actions. You've got to remember that there's nothing wrong with seeking connection, if that is what you're after. Rejection hurts in the first place because we are wired to seek connection. We are social creatures who rely on each other to thrive. Nowadays, we've become less physically connected. It is also important to remind yourself that rejection is proof that you've had the courage to be intentional in the first place. And if you've never been rejected, then there's a good chance that you've avoided a lot of good opportunities. Another thing you need to understand is that you are not perfect, and no one is. In this journey, our ego plays a huge role, and you need to put yourself in a position to approach. This would often mean lowering your guard and putting yourself in a position to be rejected or humiliated. Again, depending on the circumstances. Once you've learned to overcome that fear, then initiative will come naturally. And that only comes when you don't take yourself too seriously. In general, everyone makes mistakes, and in a social setting, people are usually afraid to make them. In university, the lecturer would often ask our students the easiest of questions, and no one will have the guts to reply. Personally, I was really overwhelmed by the number of people around me, and I was afraid that they would judge my voice and how I articulated my words. As you can tell, it's not really that good, and I was also afraid that my voice would break while I was talking. However, I met this one girl in foundation year who seemed to not care what anyone thought and was more focused on her goal of getting a high grade. Now, this lady was in a similar position I was in the sense that we both started out with no one we were familiar with. She would consistently ask the teacher questions that seemed, I wouldn't say stupid, but I kind of would, not gonna lie. There would be things that she wouldn't understand, and she would have the courage to ask those questions, even if she didn't grasp them the first time, and ended up going in circles with the lecturer. I would say at the start of the foundation year, we were both at a similar grade level, but over time, as we approached the final year, she became a mastermind. And in second year, she was damn near teaching the whole class. Everyone knew who she was and everyone wanted her help because she was the most intelligent and down-to-earth person, easily approachable and easy to talk to. Everyone respected her because she would ask the questions everyone was afraid to ask. That's the power of humility. She had the courage to stand up in front of a crowd and say she doesn't know. She was a mastermind because she took that initiative to pursue her dream of becoming a psychologist, disregarded how people viewed her, and became the highest achiever of the year. We became friends in foundation year because she came up to me while I was alone and asked to work with her, which made me feel seen. Luckily, we became close and at the time, we were able to work together. And honestly, without her support, I probably would have failed second year. She was someone that we could all relate to because she didn't have all the answers. Her curiosity was what made her human, and her initiative was what made her a genius. So, ask the difficult questions, because at the end of the day, you're there to learn, especially since you're paying £100 a week to be there. When it comes to your goals and achievements, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for support. No one's a fool forever, even if obtaining that knowledge may seem long-winded and difficult. When it comes to initiative, it is essential to understand the intention behind your actions, as both go hand in hand. To be intentional is to have an underlying idea for your actions with purpose and clarity and an intended outcome. Similar to having initiative, the person must take an active role in the decision making behind their actions. Now, why is this important? First and foremost, it is very important to practice taking direction in your life. People can easily fall into the trap of being stagnant and going with the flow because it's an easier route to follow. In my experience, this has only led to me to linger on my past, which is an unhealthy habit as it keeps me from the present, with my mind repeatedly asking the question of what if. There was this girl I liked in foundation year and we kept bumping into each other outside of class. First time I saw her, I was genuinely infatuated. Eventually we became friends and we would help each other out from time to time. And she'd even make me food if I was too poor to eat. Although I had the goal of being with her, I left it up to fate to decide whether it would be the case. Taking the action out of my own hands and going with the flow. Again, finding myself back in the cycle I was in secondary school. Now, I want you to know that there's nothing wrong with taking your time when pursuing someone. Just don't confuse patience with passivity. The same thing goes when it comes to your dreams and ambitions. You should learn how to take small but consistent steps. If I could go back and give myself advice, it would be to align your goals with your actions and learn to be honest with yourself and others. Because in my experience, people appreciate your honesty more than mixed signals. Lying to yourself and ignoring how you feel can cause cognitive dissonance because your actions no longer align with what you really want. Even if the relationship wouldn't be the same afterwards, it would be better to have been honest with your feelings and not dwell on them in the future. When it came to the lady and me, I wanted to be with her, but my actions never reflected that. It wasn't intentional, and eventually life drifted us apart. It is important to reflect on your intentions and take action into your own hands. It goes without saying that confidence is an important factor in taking initiative. Now, I don't want to waste my time explaining that to you. However, you might be thinking, I'm not confident enough to do this and that, which is understandable, but no one starts off that way. Confidence is something that should be loved. Play the role of the confident version of yourself until you grow into him. Just like the movie Rango, obviously without the lying. Psychologically, it is similar to gradual exposure, where the more you expose yourself to something uncomfortable, the less intimidating it becomes over time. Beyond gradual exposure and putting myself in uncomfortable positions, one of the biggest things that's helped me build my confidence was working on my self-image. I developed a clear picture of the person I want to become, and the more my actions aligned with that image, the more confident I became. When people think about improving their self-image, the first thing that usually comes to mind is self-improvement. Going to the gym, eating healthy, rubbing ice on their face, all that bullshit. Which is absolutely true and important, but that's only half of the journey. It is also important that you learn to love yourself regardless of the position you're in. All the mistakes you've made do not define who you are unless you let them. You should understand that you are capable of change. Once I understood this about myself, I gradually started to love and appreciate myself. It's easy to say that you love yourself, but what does that really look like? You know what? I'm gonna leave that with you because I'm not doing a whole section on that. I'll leave that for another video. But let me know in the comments how you practice self-love. One aspect of self-improvement that gets overlooked is how you develop your character. An example of this is building your own morals and values that you'll stick up to, which will make having discipline easier because your decisions now have direction. And staying true to yourself will have a positive effect on your mindset. The more your actions align with those morals and values, the more you'll trust yourself, and you'll form a self-confidence that will be less dependent on what others think. Confidence isn't always believing that you'll succeed, it's trusting yourself enough to try it anyway. The biggest thing I've had to learn is how to stay present. As my dad would always say, "You're always in your head, son." Growing up, he would always catch me when I was clearly not in the present. Wake up or get out of your head, and sometimes it annoyed me, but I didn't understand the importance until recently. I've learned that overthinking keeps you stuck long enough for the opportunity to pass you by. Overthinking a minor inconvenience, like an awkward 5-second interaction with someone, can turn something that seems bad into something worse. Be present and use reflection as a tool to learn, not to punish yourself, because this life isn't built by the decisions you wish you made or imagine yourself making. It's built by the ones you actually make. I want to end by saying, I'm not a guru, but these are genuine pieces of advice I've received over the years that I would give myself 5 years ago. Everything I've shared comes from years of making gradual mistakes, reflecting on them, and learning from them. Advice I would like to pass on to you guys so I can give the mistakes a purpose. I believe that initiative is one of the strongest foundations for your future, and it doesn't come without learning to trust yourself.